Hi guys, this is Tina. I'm just back for another episode of my Fabulous Flowers series. So today I thought we'd just have a little play with some fabric flowers. These are some that I've just been making kind of whilst I've been doing the series, just so as I had some to kind of pull out and show you guys really at the start of the video. So obviously I have done the puffed yo-yo flower earlier on in this series, and a long time ago I did also do another fabric flower, or tutorial on making fabric flowers. So apologies if this is a kind of repeat of some of what I've done. Obviously I'm not doing the puffed yo-yo because that was only a few weeks ago, but I will make some other flowers similar to the ones that we made before, just because obviously I've had a lot of kind of new subbies since then, who may not have seen that tutorial. And obviously, I have got a lot of videos up there now. So trawling through trying to find it might not be the easiest. So I'll try and do some new things, and, there might be some slightly older ground covered as well. So the first flower that I thought we'd do is one of these. If you can see there, it's got kind of snipped fabric around the edges. And this one's exactly the same, just in kind of patterned fabric. And then I have layered it up with kind of lace in the middle, and obviously a lovely, blingy centre. So if I just move these out of the way, now I'm going to try my hardest to stay in frame. Kind of been standing up so far, so I'm going to sit down. So here I've just got a strip of plain fabric. Now this may have even been an old school shirt, I have a feeling, of my son's, and I just literally tore the kind of sleeves off and coffee dyed it. So this is what I'm going to use. Basically, actually I'm going to do it, I think, this way round, because the coffee's quite strong and kind of marked in definite ways on this side. So I haven't got a ruler with me because, as you know, if you watch my channel, I don't tend to measure things. This is probably about 2 inches wide, and I would imagine it's about 12 inches long. Now, sometimes, obviously, this is to my detriment that I don't measure things and I will find it's completely the wrong size for what I need. Let's hope today's not going to be one of those days. So what we need to do first of all is literally just kind of fold the fabric over, and we're just going to literally do a running stitch just along the bottom. Doesn't have to be neat, you don't have to get it perfect or anything, we're not looking for perfection. I have tried this before where I glued the the edge down, which worked fine, but it did make the flower then quite bulky. So since then I have obviously made them always stitch in this, really, because obviously the glue did just kind of bulk the flower out a bit too much, I found, and also it kind of made it less flexible, I suppose, because the glue was kind of setting kind of quite stiff. Then the flower wasn't so easy to manipulate it around kind of in a circle. So my preferred method would be stitching, but by all means kind of go for it if you kind of can't be bothered with the sewing. As I say, I mean, it did work, it just literally kind of made it a little bit kind of kind of solid and kind of fat, I suppose, and a little bit kind of harder to kind of bend, but it worked okay. So literally, I've said before, I'm certainly not a seamstress, and sewing on kind of camera is probably not one of my favourite things to do, it has to be said. So there we go. All you're literally wanting to do is attach the two sides together. That's all we've been kind of aiming for there. So all I'm going to do here is kind of just finish it off. Whoops. Finish it off by kind of stitching through there a couple of times, just so it's not going to be coming out again. Just do one more. I'm always a little bit paranoid about things coming undone. Right, so I'm just going to snip that there. Now hopefully my stitching's not going to show, so it won't matter that I've used the grey thread, but I wanted to use something that was kind of nice and visible so as you guys could actually see, you know, easily what I'm actually doing here. So then what you want to do is literally go along your fabric piece and just snip down like that. And what you can do, just to kind of speed things up a little bit, is kind of fold it in half and then, you know, snip it together, because that way you're kind of doing twice as many at the same time. And, you know, these are not my ideas. These are all things that I have seen other people doing. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of awesome tutorials. So please don't feel that you have to kind of stick with mine. There's a load of lovely, you know, really awesome tutorials. So, you know, by all means, check them out. You know, we're so lucky that we have obviously YouTube these days, because it really is kind of such a wealth of things on there. Right, now what you can do then is, and I did have a circle ready cut, here we go. So I've got my circle here. I'm just going to grab some paper to put down so that I'm not gluing my fabric piece, which I just put down so you weren't looking at my kind of messy mat really. All we are actually going to do is literally start winding it round on the kind of fabric piece. So decide which way round you want it, you know, I'm sure it doesn't matter at all. And then get, you know, I like to use my hot glue, put a run of hot glue around, and then just start stitching it round kind of in a semicircle just around the edge of your fabric circle there. Right, and it's all stuck all over the paper, so it's lucky that I did put that down, otherwise it would have been stuck all over my fabric. There we go. And, you know, as I say, there's really no kind of precision kind of to doing this. It's you know, pretty forgiving and pretty you know, you can kind of get away with kind of however it goes really. So that's your first layer. Now, depending on how long you cut it, I'm just checking I'm in frame. Depending on how long you cut it and what size your circle base is, you may be able to get away with kind of doing a second layer. So I'm just going to literally run some glue around sort of slightly inside, if you see what I mean, so that my next row is slightly in from the first row. Now again, you know, you do kind of have to put your fingers in the glue, unfortunately, which is pretty hot, so just be a bit careful. I've got threads galore. I had to laugh because Carol did mention it would be hilarious to see me getting glue stuck all over me with the eyelash trim. And the eyelash trim, obviously. So this one's for you, Carol. It's not eyelash trim, but hey, it might as well be, because the threads are just as messy as the eyelash trim would have been. So here we go. Right. Now, for me, that looks enough. So what I'm going to do is kind of just snip off the last couple. So I'm just going to take that there, just kind of snip off those last couple, because for me that's kind of now, it's enough on there. Now, as you can see, I mean, it looks pretty rubbishy so far, but it really doesn't matter because we're going to kind of rough it up, and obviously it's going to have a kind of centre bit. So, you know, hopefully this all isn't going to kind of matter too much. You can obviously kind of, you know, rough it up and kind of do it how you like. So for this one, I've bought some coloured lace along, which I thought would look really nice. So all I'm going to do is exactly the same kind of method, but just a kind of slightly smaller one. So I'm just going to cut it down like that. And again, I'm not measuring, I'm just kind of guessing by eye. So that's probably about half the size that we used previously. And I did just knot my thread, so it's already, you know, ready to go. Check I've got my lace the right way round. And then literally exactly the same, I'm just going to do a running stitch through here, because again, this will all save on the kind of bulking out of my flower. So just literally stitch around the whole way round the, or not round, sorry, the whole way down the length of the piece of lace. Nearly done. There we go. And then, now you see, this is why I just shouldn't do anything that's a little bit fiddly on camera, because it just looks so terrible, because I'm now got my needle completely kind of caught up. So hopefully you are not as kind of clumsy as me, and you will be doing a much better job of this. Right, so as you can see, I've now got pretty much a kind of circle. So all I'm going to do is go back through where I kind of started, more or less. So as I join the two bits of fabric together, I'll just go through a couple of bits there so it's kind of secured. And then literally kind of pull it around a little bit for how you want it, how tight you want it. And then obviously you've got some movement there. So just tie it through, and then just, I'm going to knot it. You may have a better method. Like that. I mean, I've said before, I absolutely love making flowers. I think they're just so fun to make. So, you know, although my methods look a little bit shoddy, you know, I do actually love doing this. So then all you're going to do, let me just check that I'm in frame. Hold on. Yep, still in frame, so that's all good. All I'm going to do is literally making sure that my two kind of seams here are kind of together. Can you see that? So make sure they're kind of together and folded downwards, so then they're kind of going to be glued on. And then all I'm going to do is literally run some glue around the kind of base of the flower, and then just pop it in to the middle, just like that. Okay, make sure it's all kind of pressed in, and you know, at this point, if you want to kind of spread any of the, you know, the ruffles, or effectively what are your petals out, then you can do that. So, you know, you get it kind of then shaped exactly as you want it, like that. And then all the, you know, you now kind of have to do is obviously find something pretty for the centre. Now, I don't know whether I'm going to be brave and actually try and use some eyelash trim. Now, I haven't ever tried using eyelash trim in the centre of a flower. So this is for Laura. Laura, I'm going to now attempt it, so hope I don't live to regret this. Got some kind of ivory here, which is really pretty. Oh my gosh, it's already kind of, it's already looking messy. Right, I've just cut a little manageable piece here. Right, let me hang that back up. Okay. Oh, I don't know whether I'm going to manage to do this or not. Now, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to have in this flower, and I had brought along a cameo, which I thought would look really pretty, and now can I find it? No, not for the life of me can I find the cameo that I'd actually brought along for the centre of this. So guaranteed the second that I've glued this in, I will then stumble across the cameo that I actually, oh here we go, it was hiding. So I thought that might look quite pretty. Now, oh, I'm not sure whether I can get on with this. Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, it does look very pretty. Whether or not I can actually kind of get to grips with it is another thing altogether. I don't know what it is about the eyelash trim, but it just freaks me out a little bit. I kind of managed it the other day where I was just doing a line of it. That was within my capabilities. Actually having kind of a bunch of it, I'm not quite so sure. So bear with me, guys. This may be a complete disaster. It's a first and I haven't tried it before, so might be making a complete mistake now trying to do it on camera for the first time. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the tiniest amount of kind of hot glue just on the cameo, and then just kind of try and attach some eyelash trim. Oh my god. So Carol, I now am covered in eyelash trim and hot glue. So, oh my gosh, look, and just round here. Okay, wow, I've done it. Now, I know that lots of you guys use this all the time, and you probably think, oh my gosh, what's she making the fuss for? But I really struggle with anything a little bit kind of delicate. So this for me is very fiddly. My hands just do not kind of do fiddly, so this for me is very fiddly. Right, I had put a little kind of flower in there. Can you see that? I don't know whether really it's just lost completely and just then, you know, therefore a little bit of a waste of the flower. I'm just going to have a look in my little tin to see whether I've got any kind of bigger flower trims that I could use. Or I have got some other kind of lace. I just thought it might look quite pretty to have something else kind of on here as well. Hang on. I have also got this dark brown, which is really rather nice. So, I mean, hopefully this is really kind of demonstrating that anything goes with flowers. Right, I quite like that. So what I'm going to do, I've got this dark brown lace, which I'd actually brought along for a different flower, but anyway. I'm just going to kind of cut it just a little bit more circular. Obviously, it's not a circle. But just so it's kind of heading at least in that direction. And then obviously I'm thinking it just adds a little bit more kind of extra kind of dimension to the flower. So, well, I'm going to just pop this down here. Like that, and then very carefully take my cameo with the eyelash trim, just kind of pop it on there like that, and I'll just hold it in place for a couple of moments. Okay, and then all I want to do now is really kind of distress it with some ink. So just to the side of me, I've got my distress ink, So just going to go around the edges of the fabric with the ink. And obviously this is really helping to kind of separate them anyway, you know, but it just really makes them look kind of gorgeous and grungy. So there we go. Oops. And obviously, you know, if you wanted to kind of have a bit more kind of movement, then you could always tear your petals a bit further, because obviously that's kind of where you've got the movement coming from. So I'll just kind of do that. There we go. There we go. So that's the first one, which just looks really pretty. So if I just show you again, that was one of those, and obviously that's them with the blingy centres, and that's it with obviously the cameo centre. So, you know, really easy. I do apologise for the whole threads and what have you everywhere, but you know, very fun to kind of make, and just something a little bit different when you're kind of doing your flowers. So that's those. If I just pop them to one side. Now the next kind of flower I thought that we would do is just this one. Now this one is literally the most basic of basic flowers that you could ever use, probably. So what, in fact, actually before we do that, I had actually brought along this material with the view to do another one of those, yeah, that we've just done, because I thought this would look really, really lovely. Let me just have a look. Well, I guess what we could do is do this kind of version in this. Let's do that. So if we just cut this down. So again, this is just kind of, you know, similar-ish length, kind of 10-12 inches. And literally, it is just a single piece. This is not folded over now. So this is more kind of as per the lace that we did for the inside of here. So it's got lace all stuck on there now. Right, let me just rethread my needle. So hold on. Let's just try and thread it quite long so that hopefully I won't have to do it again for this flower at least. Well, I won't have to actually, because we pull these tight. Obviously I used a lot of thread doing the first one, because actually we kind of needed that straight. Right, so this one here, all we're going to do is literally kind of stitch it in. So it's not overly straight, I have to say, so I'm just going to kind of take that in slightly here. I mean, again, it doesn't really matter, but obviously otherwise we might just have a really bulky kind of middle bit. So I'll just take that in a bit, and then we just literally stitch it in with the running stitch, like that. And then go again. Oops. And then a bit more. Like this. So I'm working kind of in the background on kind of what I'm going to do for the final, you know, to finish the series off. So you know, hopefully I will kind of get that done quite soonish. I've had great fun doing this, and I really appreciate everyone's support. So thank you so much. You know, it's been really fun, and you know, obviously there were moments where I just thought, how much more can I actually do with flowers? But I think we got through it kind of unscathed. So hopefully kind of learnt a couple of new things on the way, and it's, yeah, hopefully kind of been quite fun. I didn't want to just kind of do like another journal in a series, because I just thought that was a bit boring, you know, to just keep on just doing the same old thing, really. So that was where I was kind of coming from with this. So hopefully, you know, we kind of did achieve doing something a bit different. Now, obviously I've got these here. So, I mean, what you could do if you're kind of very, you know, that way inclined, you could kind of just stitch these. You know, I am obviously not a very neat person, so my kind of stitching is just appalling, really. But just so as you kind of hold them together, you could kind of do that, and that would just kind of hold them together sort of slightly better. Just stitch back down them. There we go. Now, I probably wouldn't have worried, actually. It's just that this is kind of upholstery fabric. So this is actually quite thick fabric. So it kind of, would I call it a bit more temperamental? I'm not sure whether that's kind of the right term, but it just kind of has a bit more of a mind of its own, I suppose. Right, so that's the kind of edge piece of your flower. And then what I brought along was some of that gorgeous lace that Laura had gifted me, which I just thought went perfectly with this. So all you're going to do again is take a kind of little piece. Oh, I don't believe it. My scissors literally just kind of must have snipped my needle clean off of my... There must have been a sharp bit on the handle of the scissors. And there I was just saying, oh, hopefully I won't have to re-thread my needle because I'd put such a long piece of thread on there. And now look. Hold on for a moment. Bear with me while I'm just threading it. Oh, come on. This is now because I'm obviously trying to do it in a bit of a hurry. Right. So. Oh, come on. Okay. Oh. Don't know what's going on with me today. Oh no. Sometimes just doing a video, I just find is kind of more like doing a comedy sketch. It's just full of kind of one mistake after another. Right, now what I'm going to do with this is try and kind of stitch into this kind of edge piece, if you can see that. See, it's got a kind of seam running along, because that's obviously something to, you know, grip onto with my needle. If I don't stitch onto that, then I'm actually quite into the lace, if you see what I mean. I'm quite a way in to actually have something else to kind of grip onto. So just going to try and kind of keep it stitched into the seam, which again, kind of easier said than done when you're a little bit on the kind of clumsy side. I'm not even sure whether I am actually in frame or whether you're just literally watching the fabric I did just stitch on the piece of paper. Oh my gosh. I couldn't have picked a worse piece of lace really for sewing to do this video with. Would have been better off using this for a gluey project. Oh gosh, come on. It's just when I saw that upholstery fabric and then I saw this lace, I just thought, oh wow, they just really complement each other really well. So that's why I kind of chose this, because I thought it just would be absolutely awesome with that fabric. Right, so that's my piece. Now what you want to do, exactly as we did before, just kind of pull it in, kind of thread it round, and then as I did with the brown lace and the upholstery fabric just now, I like to just go back through the first piece that we stitched. Now hang on, I have now looped my thread completely around it. Right, okay, here we go. There we go. Now obviously I have used quite a long piece for such a little piece of lace, so that's where there's now a little bit of trouble there. So I'm just going to literally stitch back through those to kind of hold them together a little bit better, like that. Okay, right, let me just knock that off. I don't have to worry too much because obviously I'm going to be gluing this down, so you know, it's fine. So take your flower, you know, for your centre. Now I've left that with quite a big kind of hole in the middle and didn't gather it too tight, because if I did, it would kind of be quite small for the flower itself, if you see what I mean. So, you know, if that kind of bothers you, you could always layer up something else in between the two layers. So if I just have a look kind of in my little bag beside me, what we could do is kind of just literally pop a little kind of lace circle or two there. Obviously I can't do another kind of long run because I don't have enough in this particular lace, which I just kind of had in the bag beside me. So hold on. But hopefully what this video is demonstrating really is that when it comes to kind of fabric flowers, anything goes. You know, they're kind of just a kind of suck in and see, and you just build up as you kind of go, and then they just come together. So that's those. I'm just going to grab a little piece of the fabric that Laura gifted me just to kind of do my base in. So just bear with me, I'm just cutting a little kind of piece, and I would just do a kind of circle there. There we go. Now this fabric, although is brilliant, it's not ideal for cutting because it's quite slippery. Right, so all I'm going to do is literally a large dab of glue on the whole of the circle, and then just pop my first layer onto the circle. Now, as you can see, that's not even in the centre, but really doesn't matter. You know, it's just so you've got something to kind of work with.
Check I'm in frame.
Okay, so then the next layer, we're just going to literally pop one of these. Let me just pop another glue stick in. We're just going to pop one of these lace rounds in here. And again, you know, doesn't have to be kind of too precise or anything. And then just going to grab another one, or the other one. We're just going to have that. Have it here. I didn't want them kind of the exact same way that I'd cut them, because obviously you know, it's nice when they kind of overlap a little bit, because that's what gives you your kind of edges. Now, can you see I'm kind of pressing this slightly in the middle here, and that's how they raise up a little bit. Does that make sense? So that's that. And then you take your little centerpiece, and then you're just going to literally glue that into here. So as I say, I mean, I obviously did use quite a lot of lace for the size of this flower, you know, quite a long length. So, you know, in a perfect scenario, I probably wouldn't have used quite so much, but you know, it's fine. It's still, you know, it still works perfectly fine. So, and at this point, obviously, you can just spread your petals out and your ruffles out exactly as you want them. So again, I would just press that in. And then again, to kind of scruffy it up, I am just going to literally take my ink.
Just check the time. Right.
I'm just going to take my ink, oops, and just go all over the flower. And obviously, as you can see, when I'm doing this, the edges are then, you know, getting scruffier and more threads coming out, which, you know, I love. So that's how kind of, you know, what was quite a kind of stark looking kind of flower with not much kind of life to it, I suppose, now just looks quite vintage and lovely and yummy. So, you know, straight away looks kind of a lot better, doesn't it? And then obviously pop in something in the center. So I'm just literally having a little bit of a rummage through my little tin here. Now, I think that looks quite nice. It's a kind of contrast, you know, but I think that works quite well in this. You could have this button. I think that really works really nicely too. Let's see what else I've got. I think it's that fabric and that lace just looks really nice with kind of everything that you put there. So let me just have a look, kind of stand up and kind of stand away from it a little bit. So that one's nice. Got that one, looks really pretty. Or a kind of blingy one. I mean, I'm always drawn to the kind of blingy ones, to be honest. But I mean, occasionally it is nice to kind of have them, you know, with a button or something instead. That's a bit too pink. So I think for me, it's probably either that or that. I think that one actually, it's really nice. So I'm just going to literally glue this in. And even though this one's got one of those, you know, I can't think what you call them, like a shank kind of bit, it's fine because obviously we had the hole in the middle, so it just sat in there. So there you go. Gorgeous, you know, really, really pretty, really rustic looking. Obviously you could pull more threads out, you know. You can kind of just play around and kind of make these flowers your own. You could obviously hang some kind of streamery type bits down, you know, oops. You really can kind of decorate these however you like, really, and kind of go to town with them. Well, let's do that, shall we? Let's pop a couple of kind of streamery bits hanging down. This one. And then we might just have a kind of slightly longer one. And what I'll do is just, whoops, quickly ink them up before we kind of glue them on. Oops. I bought a new ink pad, so I've now kind of got nice juicy ink pads, so raring to go. So, I mean, I suppose the key thing here really is just play and kind of layer bits up as you kind of see fit. And, you know, really kind of anything goes. There's no rules, there's no anything, you know. they just evolve and kind of build up from whatever you kind of pop on them, really. So if I just literally attach those two, so we could just attach the first one. Like that. And then the next one. Oops. Yeah, I think there's just kind of no end with what you can do with the fabric flowers. You know, they just endlessly gorgeous, and just really love making them. So you could kind of have that. I mean, you could also finish it off with a little bit of pearl trim. So let me see if I've got any kind of pearl trim here beside me. So I've got this. This is kind of fatter really than I would have used. The pearl trim that Laura gifted me would have been perfect, but it's not to hand at the moment. And I don't want to kind of turn everything off while I kind of go and grab it. So, you know, we could pop this pearl trim here. So I just hold that together like that. Pop that in there. And then what I quite like to do if I do things like pop the pearl trim, I just pop a bit on the top and glue the kind of layer of fabric above it onto there as well, because that's just kind of extra strength, I suppose, to kind of make sure it's really stuck down really nice and firm. Now I think that looks gorgeous just actually as it is. I have got some stick pins, so you know, you could kind of pop a stick pin in. I don't think I've really got one that's quite the right colours. I'm just having a look, but you know, you could kind of pop a stick pin in kind of to the side. I'm not going to be able to get that in now. Again, shouldn't really kind of try and do things that I haven't planned for on a video, because invariably they just don't really kind of go to plan, do they? So it's just never really a good idea. There we go. Got it in there eventually. So I'm just going to push it back out slightly. Just because otherwise we kind of lost it completely in there. So I'll just pull it back a little bit. There we go. And then what I like to do again, if I use a kind of stick pin, I just kind of attach a little bit of glue there, just to kind of hold it in place as well, even though it is actually kind of obviously pushed in. And then what I normally do is go to the back and then just trim off the piece that's jutting out, just so that you don't kind of stab anybody. So again, just get your kind of metal cutters and then just literally snip it off. Mine are very blunt, they're very old now. There we go. There we go. So I mean, I think that looks so pretty. Really, really, really lovely. And I mean, obviously that one's quite fancy now. It's, you know, got the pearl and things. So if I just bring in a journal cover. So again, this is unfinished, but just to kind of give you an idea of how that would look on a cover. Isn't that gorgeous? It just looks so pretty, doesn't it? And obviously this is the other one that we made. So again, how pretty is that? And I mean, again, you could obviously decorate this one up as well with, again, if I just grab back the pearl trim again, you could obviously pop some pearls on there as well. Oops. So what I'll do, I pop them like that, hold them out of the way, and then we'll just take the kind of pearls there like that and just literally pop them in here like that. And then again, I would just kind of dab a little bit of glue on those, just to kind of hold them in place slightly more. Obviously they're a bit more vulnerable on this flower because this flower's not a solid run of fabric, if you see what I mean. But straight away, you know, that just looks that bit more, you know, fancy and kind of special with the pearl trim there. So, you know, it's worth having a play around and kind of seeing what looks good. Now, I'm aware that the time is obviously getting away, but just one kind of final thing really is something more simple, which I use these really a lot, especially when I'm doing kind of kids book journals. So again, I've hardly got any thread now because of what happened with my scissors. So let me just literally try and very quickly thread my needle. Oh no. You see, you should just never do things in a rush, should you? Because obviously I'm rushing and now it's taken, you know, 5 times as long, but hold on. Okay, right. Literally, I mean, I just want to really just quickly kind of show you, you know, obviously these are super simple. And I mean, in fact, I've made a lot of these for my daughter as little hair clips. All I'm going to do is kind of trim down the ends of this fabric, but it's just some fabric that I bought in for doing this little tutorial, and literally just go along again exactly as we have done for the last couple of bits that we've made, just with the running stitch. Oops, the entire length of the fabric. And for these, you know, I mean, I just love to use bright colourful fabrics, you know, because I just think if you're working with things like kids books, or, you know, kind of something a bit fun, or maybe a journal for a child, or, you know, like a journal for a baby, or, you know, anything like that, or maybe even a spring summer kind of themed journal, then I just think it's so nice to use kind of some really fun coloured fabrics or fun coloured prints. So again, I'm just going to take that and go back through that first kind of petal, or sorry, not first petal, the first stitch kind of thing, to join those circles together. So we're just really wanting to kind of join them up, and then you can pull them pretty tight like that, and then you can obviously adjust how your folds have kind of come in. Just going to knock that off like that. Okay, let me get rid of my needle and thread, because I think we're kind of out of time really for doing kind of anything else really. But then obviously here where my fabric was not the same kind of width, so you can then tidy it up, kind of just bring it down, kind of make it the shape and size that you kind of want. Again, don't be too fussy, kind of just cut it down and kind of round as you kind of want, like that. Now, I would normally have torn the fabric, but this is some of that bunting that I've obviously still got tons of, that doesn't want to tear because it's been stitched on the kind of wrong, you know, the fabric's running the wrong way. So that's why I haven't torn this. Obviously this fabric, as you can see, whoops, I did tear this. So straight away my edge is much better, you know, it's much rougher and kind of more fun looking. And then again, you know, I mean, you don't even have to kind of back these particular flowers on a circle at all. Obviously the other ones you kind of tend to need to, because you want to have something to kind of use as your firm base. These ones, they are effectively kind of a base on their own, but if you do want to kind of stick them, just again kind of something round, you know, it could be even card, you know, or paper like that, stick that on there. And again, you could decorate this then however you wanted. I tend to, when I'm making kind of kids books and things like that, not making kids books, working with kids books, I tend to use buttons. I think buttons are really fun to use when you're using kids books. So I'm just going to literally glue that like that. And obviously the beauty of these ones, I mean, not only are they just super cute and really pretty, they're very flat. You know, that's not taking any kind of bulk whatsoever. So again, if I just pull in, still got my kids book journal. It is kind of finished now, but I haven't done a flip through yet. Although by the time that this video is uploaded, I may well have done. But if I just kind of show you how that would look on a page. So for instance here, I mean, I have actually used one of these here on this page, as you can see, but if I were to take this one that we've just literally made in a couple of seconds, how cute does that look? I'm hoping you can see that. How cute does that look? And it literally took, you know, hardly any time at all to make, but it just looks so pretty, doesn't it, with the, you know, the kids book images. I mean, obviously that's used in a kind of bright coloured fabric. If you used a, you know, a muted fabric or a plain fabric, you can easily get these to look very kind of vintage too. It's just that, you know, sometimes I like to kind of mix it up and have kind of more, you know, kind of fun, colourful things really. But equally, I have used these, again, just using kind of this type of coffee dyed plain cotton, exactly the same, but maybe finish it with a pearl centre or something like that. So yeah, I really love these, and I actually really, you know, use these quite a bit. So just thought I would come along and do a quick kind of, you know, fabric flowers kind of play, I suppose, just because obviously, you know, the series is coming to an end, and obviously it perhaps felt a little bit unfinished to me to have not done anything other than the fabric yo-yo. So I'm just going to move my piece of paper to one side and just kind of line up the three that we've just made, and yeah, hopefully that's kind of given you some ideas and some inspiration maybe to kind of get playing and, you know, have a bit of fun with some fabric flowers. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, and I will see you again soon. Bye.